because you can still rocks the vote tonight for the Platinum Glove Award in the National League. It's the Rockies Insider with your host, Patrick Lyons. Yes, voting is still open for the Rawlings Platinum Glove Award for the best defender in both the AL and the NL. Cast your vote for Ezekiel Tovar or Brenton Doyle if you must. Today's show, we have to talk about 20 new free agents for the Colorado Rockies, identify who's going to hurt that they leave and who could possibly return. How many of them is it reasonable to return back into the fold, into the minor league system for the Rockies? Everybody out there has their top 50 free agents this offseason. And while we know the Rockies won't be spending a lot, in fact, they want to reduce payroll, there have been a couple free agents, top 50 free agents, that have been tied to the Rockies, or at least who make sense to be acquired by the Rockies in free agency. And Juan Soto, are we one step closer to finding out where he's going to end up? We'll talk about it. Absolutely. Going to talk about on today's Rockies Insider. But the news of the day, 20 minor league players reaching minor league free agency. A lot of interesting names on this list, some whose name carries a lot more weight than their track record in the minors, some in the majors. But I think a lot of Rockies fans, especially the hardcore ones that are listening right now, are hoping that a lot of them do return. But the fact remains, nearly all of them will not. If you go back and look at the track record of players who are minor league free agents, a good majority of them do end up going to another organization. That also means the Rockies end up acquiring players from other organizations that may end up contributing, making their debut, having an impact on the big league roster. That's just the business of baseball. Now, last year, of their 17 minor league free agents, only 2 ended up returning in 2024. Chance Adams and Josh Rogers. Rogers even having an opportunity to play with the Rockies during the course of the 2024 season. 2 years ago, in 2022, of the 21 minor league free agents, only Brett Boswell returned. So 1 out of 21. So we're looking at 3 out of 38 actually came back into the fold for the Colorado Rockies. And no, I'm not going to count Wynton Bernard from that 2022-23 class because he did originally sign with the Toronto Blue Jays, only to return to the Rockies in AAA with the Isotopes after being released by Toronto. So who are these players? In alphabetical order. No, actually by positional order. The right-handed pitchers, Chance Adams, Luis Amoroso, Peyton Battenfield, Noah Davis, Brendan Hardy, Riley Pint, Connor Van Scoyoc. 2 names jump out there. Riley Pint is not one of them. I think a change of scenery could do him really well. He has electric stuff on his fastball, on his four-seam fastball. But the bottom line is he walks too many players. He walks too many hitters to put him in any spot, in any game, in the majors. And maybe a change of scenery will allow him to have a lot more of a big league career for himself, because right now we're talking about cups of coffee over the course of 2 years. He was finally able to get an out. What's going on in the chat? Appreciate you dropping by. The 2 names that jump out to me as, again, I wouldn't say painful, but you like their upside. You like what you were able to see from them once they came over via trades, 2 separate deals. But Noah Davis, I think, is a big league starter. Maybe the back end of a starting rotation, and maybe going to another organization will allow him to make the necessary tweaks. Maybe he ends up benefiting from a role in a bullpen and has somewhat of a turnaround like a Jeff Hoffman did. We saw his success over the last couple years joining the Philadelphia Phillies. So Noah Davis, he's a big leaguer. I think he's going to have himself a nice career, especially if he latches on with another team. And then Connor Van Scoyoc, who was a player that seemed like he might be able to come to some kind of agreement with the Rockies, get added to the 40-man roster. Truth be told, with these minor league free agents, there's not a ton known about them and the contracts. There's now a minor league CBA. That's still something that information is slowly getting out there into the world in terms of the impact and the minutia that goes into these kind of contracts. So Our guy Thomas Harding said Van Scoyoc was a good candidate to be added to the 40-man roster. If he's a minor league free agent, that's not happening. So we'll wait and see what happens with that. Brendan Hardy was a minor league Rule 5 pick. A lot of those minor league Rule 5 pick guys don't even get a chance to scrape the major leagues. So not a big one there. Two left-handed pitchers, Juan Hillman and Felix Ramirez, also minor league free agents. Let's get to the hitters. The first one, catcher, Willie McIver. That one's rough. Willie McIver is an 80 on the 20-80 scale as far as hype men go. As far as catchers that are there for their pitchers, does a great job game calling, strong defensive catcher. We saw a lot more offense out of him over the last 2 years with AAA Albuquerque. And he's another player that perhaps a change of scenery does him well. And maybe he gets an opportunity to catch. You looked at the Rockies roster, and I talked about it on yesterday's show, the fact that right now you only have Drew Romo and Hunter Goodman as your two catchers on the 40-man roster now that Jacob Stallings is a free agent. Now, Willie McIver, certainly a much more veteran presence, might not get you frothing at the mouth and saying, oh, wow, this guy could really be the next Elias Diaz. Maybe he could sneak in and be somewhat of an all-star. I don't think that's reasonable. But yet at the same time, you thought, well, maybe he could do a very serviceable job. Maybe, catchers can be a lot like relief pitchers, or can be a lot like left-handed pitchers, where it takes them a while to mature, that they really start getting good when they're 30. Now, that might be a little bit old for a lot of catchers, but a guy like Willie McIver, he's almost coming into his catching prime right now. And he's currently playing for Team USA in the WBSC Premier 12 tournament. That is going to get started on Saturday. I think US is in the Mexico bracket. That was supposed to be played in 2023. They're playing it this year. So now Willie McIver, he's surrounded by a ton of former big league guys. He'll be catching Rich Hill. He's representing Team USA. So I think Willie McIver in this setting, being around players from other organization, comparing, matching notes, I think he's more likely than not going to end up with another organization. Then again, these minor league deals can be structured in a way where you can get some decent money. So if the Rockies do need a little bit of insurance at the catching spot, they could offer him a little bit more. But is he going to get more playing time elsewhere? Absolutely. Absolutely. If Hunter Goodman is going to be the backup, playing twice a week as catcher, you still need to go out and get a starting catcher. Seems like Jacob Stallings may have to come back at a much more higher rate than what the Rockies had originally intended to pay him. But if Goodman's going to be your backup catcher, to allow Drew Romo to get regular at-bats, a little bit more seasoning, where are the starts? Where are the at-bats? Where are the opportunities for a Willie McIver? We also have two first basemen, Kyle Datris and Grant Levine. Second baseman, Hunter Stovall. Third baseman, Elihuris Montero. And shortstops, Christopher Navarro and Connor Kaiser. Stovall has good numbers in the minor leagues. Dude can hit. Great teammate. I think he is absolutely ticketed to become a big league coach at some point in his career. And I think with so many of the young players coming up through the system, there's not a lot of playing time for these players that have been career Rockies and have been in AA, AAA for 3 going on 4 years. So unfortunately, it is time to move on from that. So the impact of Hunter Stovall, absolutely, it's going to be felt, his absence from the locker room. And Elihuris Montero, I still think there's an opportunity for him out there to hit 25 home runs in the big leagues. A lot of talk around the Rockies was that, man, Montero going over to Japan, he would absolutely rake. He would absolutely rake. Maybe he's more of a KBO type of guy. Maybe he goes to Korea. But a 30 home run season in Japan or Korea, sign me up. I think that absolutely ends up happening. I think that absolutely ends up happening for him. In the outfield, Nico Decolati, Jamison Hanna, Jimmy Herron, Vladimir Restituyo. The latter two, so somewhat of a loss. Again, there is a roster crunch that's being felt more in the minors than it is in the majors. Jimmy Herron really had a breakout season in 2023, and Vladimir Restituyo still incredibly young. He might not have even turned 22 years old yet. I thought he had a solid year in Double-A Hartford, but you look at the Rockies' top 30 prospects, and while you don't see Restituto's name, you do see a lot of other outfielders. And so going to another organization for him, I think makes sense for him, his family, and for the rest of his career. A lot of Rockies free agents, minor league free agents from other teams or former Rockies in the chat. Top Rockies free agents for 2025. We talked about it yesterday, but I do want to get your opinion on this. And I'm going to be talking about one of these names here. Spencer Turnbull, Tomoyuki Shigano, Kyle Higashioka, Tyler O'Neill, JD Martinez. The Rockies will be in conversation with one of those players. Thank you again, jumping in the chat over on the YouTube side of things. Even if you're listening to this as a podcast, you can go over on YouTube, leave a comment on a video that's a day, a week, a month old, and I can obviously get back to that and comment and strike up somewhat of a discourse. So some former Rockies that are now minor league free agents around the league: Tommy Doyle and Tyler Matzik of Atlanta, Dom Nunez of Cleveland, Ryan Vilade from Detroit, 2 Dodgers, Jordan Lyles and Alan Trejo. Did you know Jordan Lyles had latched on with the Dodgers? I found that out at some point during the year and then totally forgot about it. They were both there. In Philly, David Dahl, now a minor league free agent. Enrico Garcia was a minor league free agent with the Nationals, except on Wednesday he signed a minor league deal with the New York Mets. Couple guys who were minor leaguers with the Rockies only, never actually played a lick of ball with the Rockies, with the big league varsity club. Taron Vavra of Baltimore, now a minor league free agent. I was really high on him coming up through the minor league system. I have a tendency to take a liking to second base types: Coco Montes, Taron Vavra, Alan Trejo, Garrett Hampson. These were all guys that coming up through the minors, I said, these are big leaguers. They might not be future all-stars, but these guys are absolutely big leaguers. You could tell that early on. So Taron Vavra, maybe he comes back into the fold. He was traded to the Orioles for Michael Givens in 2020. Givens later flipped to Cincinnati to bring back Case Williams and Noah Davis. Forrest Wall latched on with Baltimore. He was traded in 2018 for Sungwon Oh. Anthony Bemboom, I want to say it was 2019 that he was with Albuquerque in AAA. Elliot Soto also with the Isotopes. And then Mateo Hill is now a minor league free agent. He was with the Mets last year, taken in the minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft. Mateo Hill, the son of Benji Hill, manager of Team Mexico from the 2023 World Baseball Classic. And Mateo also part of that Nolan Arenado package that came from St. Louis. There's also a couple Colorado kids that are out there that we know the Rockies do take a liking to that kind of story. Players that are from the Rocky Mountain region that could possibly make an impact on their big league roster, provide a good, heartwarming story. Bobby Dahlbeck, now a minor league free agent. He's from Parker, Colorado, went to Legend High School. David Bodie, born in Longmont, raised in the Niwot area, attended Faith Christian Academy High School in Arvada. He is no longer with the Chicago Cubs. And Bly Madris, though not a true Colorado kid, he did attend Colorado Mesa University in Grand Junction. So minor league free agents, acting on the margins a little bit can really help your roster, can really help contribute, especially if you have some depth issues. And while the Rockies' depth has definitely improved in the last 2 years, 2023, you saw how absolutely thin they were, where they were just picking up any starting pitcher that was on waivers. You saw how thin they were because of their inability to evaluate their roster and acquire prospects at the trade deadline in 2020, 2021, and 2022. 2020, I can almost give them a pass because it was such a short season and they thought maybe they could turn things around. And so they actually acquired a couple players: Michael Givens, Kevin Pillar. You might have forgotten that he was a Rocky for a minute. He was. So I can kind of give them a pass for being creative, for being hopeful. But 2021, 2022, nope. As one former general manager described it, it was malpractice. And you saw that, the lack of depth in 2023 because of that. You absolutely saw that. So The Rockies' depth is a lot better, but it's also younger. And you still saw some reliance on veteran players this past year in 2024 in those Josh Rogers, in the Jeff Hartleibs, the Matt Cooks of the world. You still need some of those veteran guys. So the Rockies are going to operate on the margins and acquire many, many minor league free agents, as all teams do. And some of them will be able to crack the big league roster at some point. Now, according to Major League trade rumors, according to MLB trade rumors, there's only one top 50 free agent that was predicted by the four folks doing the predictions over at MLBTR that is going to find a landing spot with the Colorado Rockies. I'll talk about what the Athletics said. Who do they see as a fit? But MLB trade rumors doing a good job, as we know that the Rockies are trying to cut payroll. So you're not going to be in on a ton of top 50 free agents. And some of you might be frustrated out there saying, okay, after Juan Soto, after Alex Bregman, even if you kind of move back a little bit and say, JD Martinez, he's going to get like a 1-year deal. He's an older guy. He's on the wrong side of 35, DH type. I mean, that's not that flashy. Then you've got a couple of relievers that are, 7th inning guys, 8th inning guys. The Rockies aren't tied to any of them. Again, it requires spending to bring those lower tier free agents into Denver. And the Rockies are trying to cut payroll. And they're going to look to sign players to minor league deals with an invitation to big league camp to break camp with the roster on opening day against the Rays in somewhere in Florida. We still don't know where that's going to be. So you understand that there's not going to be a ton of players that the Rockies are going to be tied to. And for better or worse, the Rockies like their guys. And they think, hey, if they play the best that they could possibly play and they stay healthy, we actually have a really good roster here. Not a great, but we've got a roster that can be around 500. Why are you bringing in new people if you have faith in your roster? You might not agree with it, but that is their logic. That is their rationale. Spencer Turnbull, number 50, the last one on the list. One person said, you know what? He might be a decent fit for the Colorado Rockies at a 1-year, $7 million contract. Now, this is a player that has thrown about 350 plus innings with a 4.26 ERA over the course of the last 3 years. And, his career ERA has skewed a lot by a rookie season where his ERA was over 6. In 2023, just coming back from Tommy John surgery, it was over 7. But 2 of his last 3 years, he has an ERA around 3 with 50 or more innings. So getting some spot starts here and there, eating up some innings when he's given that opportunity, and overall 3.79 ERA, even given that Tommy John season. He's got a 22% strikeout rate, 8% walk rate. Those are some solid numbers. And he bet on himself going back to the Phillies last year on a 1-year, $2 million deal. And you saw that 2.65 ERA and the numbers increase to a 26% strikeout and a 9% walk rate. He's not terribly durable, which I think that's something that the Rockies would like. But at 1 year, $7 million, and now with Tommy John in the rearview mirror and really showing that, you know what, this guy has a lot of value in the bullpen as a spot starter. Maybe he's battling for your number 5 spot in the rotation. They already have a surplus of starting pitchers, which that doesn't really exist because someone's going to get hurt. Do you know that Antonio Senzatella is going to be able to make 25 plus starts? And do you know if he's going to be able to do that to begin the season? You have those same questions about Germán Marquez. Are you trading Cal Quantrill and or Austin Gomber? If so, again, the only 2 guys are going to be there are Cal Quantrill and Ryan Feltner. And so from the remaining 4 players, you hope you get 2 guys you can rely upon, and you still need room for 1 more. So I think Spencer Turnbull could be one of those players. If he is trying to get something much longer term, it might not be a fit for the Rockies. It certainly would be a much more of a fit for some other teams. And if you're trying to increase your value, you don't want to pitch at Coors Field. And therein lies the issue that the Rockies have. Free agents do not want to sign there, and justifiably so. And much of that, but not all of it, much of that has to do with that ballpark. Not even the home runs so much. It's all the dinks and dunks and the singles. Death by 1,000 paper cuts is what it can be like pitching at Coors Field. But there's one other player that was mentioned in the write-up by MLB Trade Rumors that I think is incredibly interesting, and someone that midsummer, my wheels started turning, and I thought maybe more in the old school. The old version of me before I got on the inside, before I became the Rockies insider and learned a thing or two when it comes to the front offices on various teams, especially the Colorado Rockies. I thought, man, Coors Field, Denver, altitude, the Rockies, power hitting second baseman, Gleyber Torres. I mean, put him down. He's a lock for 30 home runs, 35 home runs. He almost turns into a Dan Uggla. Hopefully not with that defense. Hopefully not with Dan Uggla type defense. But you can imagine a world in which Gleyber Torres is manning second base and hitting 35 home runs a season with the Colorado Rockies, especially at his age, 28 years old next season. He's still so incredibly young. I think he's also incredibly inconsistent. That is part of the problem. His two of his three best seasons came in 2018 and 2019, his rookie and sophomore seasons. He's been relatively durable the past 3 years, 452 games. And he wants to, again, help his value. And if he thinks the Rockies can do that, great. There's also another glaring issue with the fact that the Rockies do already have a second baseman. And that second baseman is going to be making less than what Gleyber Torres is going to make in free agency. MLB Trade Rumor says 2 years, $36 million deal. It's a short-term deal, but again, an $18 million price tag is a lot. It's absolutely a lot. And he might take a play or two off defensively, which the Rockies are not going to like. And you still have Brendan Rodgers at second base. Yeah, you've got some younger guys in the pipeline. You've got your Ryan Ritters, your Adael Amador, Sterling Thompson, probably not a second baseman. But you've got these younger players, Kyle Karros. Does he end up shifting over to second base? Maybe. But for a 2-year deal, you're not really blocking anybody. You're certainly pushing off the timeline, the start of a timeline for some of these younger guys, but not by a lot. And again, despite the fact that it would be a lot of fun watching Gleyber Torres hit at Coors Field, is that realistic? Is that going to happen? Is GT going to be playing in the 303? No. Probably not. Probably not. I don't know what kind of money the Rockies would have to clear and what kind of creative trades they would have to make to offload some money and then still be able to bring on some money, right? You have to subtract more than you add. So in a different timeline where maybe the Rockies don't have some of the financial constraints that they currently have and may have for the next few years, it's one of the reasons why, I haven't said this publicly, that the 2 longest droughts, or really, the Rockies have only had 2 postseason droughts. 95 to 2007, 12 years. And then they've had 2009 to 2017, 8 years. And we know how cyclical the Rockies can be. Are the Rockies going to be back in the postseason in 8 years? Or is it going to be 12? 8 years means 2026. We're practically here right now. 2025 needs to be a major turnaround for the Rockies to get themselves into that hunt in 2026. And when you're hamstrung financially and you have a difficulty with being creative in this way because of the financial difficulties, it's really hard to think that you're going to subtract so much that it's still going to allow you to add in all the right spots. So even if you were to trade Gomber, Quantrill, and Brendan Rodgers, you still can't afford to bring in a Gleyber Torres. The numbers still don't work out, unfortunately. So is it going to be 8 years or is it going to be 12? 2026 or 2030? Time will tell. You'll be watching the Rockies Insider to find out. I know that. That I know. Alex Bregman to the Rockies in free agency? No. But you know what? He is from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he did say he'd be willing to move to second base yesterday. Ryan McMahon could go to second base. Bregman could go to third base, but no, there's no realistic chance that we're going to see Alex Bregman come back to the Rocky Mountain region, if you will. Other news of the day, Mookie Betts headed back to second base. Now, him going back to the infield, rather, that's what I should say, is Mookie Betts ticketed to go back to the infield. Is that second base? Is that shortstop? The defensive metrics were pretty kind to him at shortstop. Does that create really what I think the Dodgers were trying to do this past year? Somewhat of a three-person platoon between second and short. You got Betts, Miguel Rojas, and Gavin Lux at second and short. I think that works. I think that absolutely works. Then Tommy Edman becomes somewhat more of your full-time center fielder. Chris Taylor, too. He's going to make up one of those outfield spots as a super utility man. So if Betts is now in the infield, who do you have in the outfield? So Tommy Edman and Chris Taylor, they can combine to take up a spot as their super utility men. Andy Pages and James Outman, who had a rough sophomore campaign, could split some time. Josue DePaula, he's their top Dodgers prospect. He's still only 19 years old and didn't play above high A last year. He won't be. He can't be a factor for them on opening day 2025. Maybe you see him later on in the year like he did Pages. But their outfield is really thin. Teoscar Hernandez is a free agent. Does this mean that Teoscar now has to return? I think so. Does this give a little bit more credence to Juan Soto going to the Los Angeles Dodgers? I think it absolutely does. I think the Dodgers they're making money hand over fist. I heard one baseball insider say that there's a chance that they could have recouped all of the money that they spent on Shohei Ohtani this past year. Yes. So that deal that the Dodgers are only spending about $465 million on Shohei Ohtani. And when Ohtani gets the money, it's going to be $700. But the Dodgers are putting money in escrow to the total of about $465 million. Did they make all of that back in 1 year with Shohei Ohtani mania? That seems totally outlandish. That seems unlikely, but maybe. Can they do it now again in the Latin American markets with a guy like Juan Soto? Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially when you consider that because Soto is still so young, just turned 26, they can give him a 14-year deal. And yeah, if it's over 500, maybe if it's at 600, I don't know if it'll get that high. His average annual value isn't actually that much. It really isn't that bad. And when you consider that if you're paying him $30 million for next season, okay, that's $30 million next season. But in 10 years from now, paying him $30 million is equivalent to paying somebody $19 million this year. It's almost what Ryan McMahon is getting paid. McMahon will get $16 million next season. In 10 to 14 years, it's almost that equivalent, that $30 million figure. So Juan Soto to the Dodgers, that would be wild. We're all going to be waiting to find out what happens. We are all going to be waiting to find out what happens. And because of this lack of depth or lack of consistency or lack of bop in the outfield, if you will, does this also mean Shohei Ohtani becomes a factor to play some corner outfield? It might be a little bit much for 2025, but internally, the Dodgers are talking about Ohtani playing a little bit of outfield. And Ohtani is thinking about it a little bit as well, too. And talking is different than doing. Teams talk about everything. They talk about everything. Then they rule some things out. But are they talking about it? Absolutely. In other Rockies related news, Michael Peterson, 2023 with the Rockies. Blue Jays have claimed him off of waivers from the Marlins. He represented Great Britain in the 2023 WBC. He made his debut with the Dodgers this year at Coors Field, where he got the win in his first ever appearance. You can't make that stuff up. Phillies are apparently going to add more payroll. Team chairman John Middleton told Scott Lauber of Philadelphia Inquirer that, quote, given where we are in contract cycles and minor league people coming up, I expect the player payroll to be higher than this year rather than lower. I'd be surprised if it's the same. I'd be stunned, very stunned. If it's lower, I don't see it being lower. The Phillies are not going away despite their team getting a little bit older. They won the AL West. They won the NL West for the first time in, I believe, 13 years this past season. So are they going to be players for Juan Soto? No, but they can pretty much have their pick of everybody else that's out there. This very well might be their last big opportunity to make a splash, to really hold up this core group of players. With, I think Castellanos only has, I think he might have 2 more years. I think Schwarber maybe only has 1 more year. But they've got an opportunity this offseason to make yet another splash and stay as one of the best teams in all of baseball. And finally, speaking of the best in baseball, Matt Arnold named the MLB Executive of the Year. He'd been one of those high-rising guys throughout Major League Baseball front offices, especially after David Stearns left the Brewers to take over the gig in New York. Matt Arnold stepping up and doing an incredible job with the Brewers, winning the NL Central. Now, the MLB Executive of the Year award is a pretty new award. 2018 was the first year officially for that. And 2018, you might recall, Rockies made the postseason. Had they won the NL West, would Jeff Bridich have won? I think there's a chance that he could have won that award. Billy Beane of the A's did end up taking home that award. A's had 97 wins. They won the AL West. But Jeff Bridich could have been an MLB Executive of the Year award winner. They were 1 game away from that happening. 1 win away from the Rockies doing the unthinkable, winning their first NL West pennant, toppling the Los Angeles Dodgers, having this homegrown team that was supplemented with a few of the right players. And yes, Ian Desmond was the right player at that time. And yes, those relievers, the super bullpen, were the right relievers at that time. Go back and look at their 2018 numbers. They were worth every penny that they got in free agency. After that, that's a different conversation. But in 2018, Jeff Bridich, MLB Executive of the Year, he was 1 win away from that. But Matt Arnold, the job that he did with the Brewers this year was incredible. They lost their field manager and Craig Counsell to the Cubs, of all places. They had to cut a little bit of payroll, so they had to deal their ace, Corbin Burns, to Baltimore. They still got back 2 enticing players, Joey Ortiz, really good over at third base. They signed Jared Koenig to a minor league deal. He went out and posted a 2.47 ERA in 55 games. Also scooped up Brian Hudson in a trade from the Dodgers. He had a 1.73 ERA in their bullpen. Had that big extension for Jackson Chourio before he had ever seen a pitch in the majors at 20 years old. Signed Rhys Hoskins, 25 homers, 80-plus RBI. And then at the trade deadline, he goes and adds 2 middle of the rotation, but still important figures in the starting rotation for the Brewers in Aaron Savali and Frankie Montas. So wheeling and dealing for the Brewers, pushing all the right buttons for Matt Arnold. Congratulations to him. Thank you for everybody. I like this comment. David Stearns, I mean, he deserves a little bit of credit for the Brewers' success. I would agree on that. And for the job he was able to do with the Mets. Should he be worth something for that? Add both of his contributions together? Great responses in the chat today. Do appreciate that. Very good. Very knowledgeable as well. But even if you're not knowledgeable, I don't care. Give me your comment. I'll break things down. I can explain it. whether that's over on social media at Patrick D. Lyons or at Patrick D. Lyons MLB. That's my Threads and TikTok account, or at Rockies_insider. Leave a comment on the video anywhere that you end up watching it. YouTube, probably the best spot for that. Leave a comment. I can respond. And I appreciate you sticking around, giving me this momentum. But as I like to say, that momentum, it's only as good as my next show. So I'll talk to you then.